Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Stool podcast, a podcast for woodworkers and the maker community in general. This is episode number 30. My name is Robin Lewis from robinlewismakes.com. I'm joined by Joey Chalk from King Post Timberworks.
Hello.
And John Crawford from Periodic Furniture Studio.
Hello.
We live stream the recording on YouTube every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, or UTC plus 10, or you can watch or listen to it later on YouTube, iTunes, or SoundCloud. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. We'll get to your comments and questions towards the end of the show, but feel free to chat amongst yourselves, the idea being that this is also a place for people to meet. So no real announcements this week, and it sounds like there's a lot of other stuff going on that we can get into. So, Joey, what have you been working on this week?
Okay, just a couple of hours ago, released a video on that coffee table I've been harping on about. Interesting. I like the video because the first and the last part are very different from what I usually do.
I noticed that there was a tone to the video. Yeah. It was pretty cool.
I thought this is almost like a real video after I finish it. I just need if I had to put some music in it, maybe it would look like a professional one. So actually, it seems like a really easy format, and I think I could probably go forward doing similar things, explaining a bit more about the design of how I do things. I'll just let the video speak for itself, I suppose, unless you guys want to talk about any aspects of it.
I only had one comment regarding the dovetail, because you mentioned that you weren't totally sold on it, but you still kind of liked it. I was thinking with that, it could look cool if you flipped it onto the top surface. So I made it like a deeper dovetail.
And then it's like a sliding dovetail kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that would be the only thing that I would have kind of suggested could change it from being on the heavy side. You could make it a bit lighter than more small. I really like the video for it.
I thought that dovetail proportionally spot on.
Okay. Yeah,
I really like that. Yeah.
I just thought when I actually put the joint together for the first time, I thought it's very big. I mean, it is a big dovetail, but it is a feature as well, I suppose.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, you got into the joinery, and in the video you're sort of saying, stuff looked like it wasn't going quite right, and it wasn't, and then you cut to the end where you showed the joinery, and it was like, it was astronomically out, especially, for like the quality of work that you do. Like, how did you get to that point and be like, okay, well now it's not good enough?
So the top rail, which just miters around where that dovetail ended up being, I think what happened was the two pieces got swapped over somewhere in the mix of pieces on the table, and so the marks where I had to make the domino cuts were slightly different, and so the alignment was out by a couple of mil, and I think that's what happened there. The bottom part where the base had that compound miter, I don't know what the hell happened. I had a huge difficulty getting the domino to sit, and I could see my mark, and it was on such a weird, hard place to hold it. I think I just moved the domino, and so the dominoes just were not in the right place.
Because in the video, you're holding up that piece, and you're like, and I looked at the piece, and I was like, "Oh!" And you went, "This one didn't turn out so bad." And I said, "Oh, really?" Like you can immediately see it. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. No. Sorry, go, George.
I was just going to say that design would actually lend itself quite well to just using screws and then plugging it. Like the dominoes are nice to keep it, with joinery, not screws. But I probably would do it with screws, because everything could be hidden really easy with that design.
Yeah, and God forbid you could put pocket holes in the bottom of it. So interesting. I mean, I think, and like at the start of the video, I had my other designs there, and I there's some more other ideas along that line I think you could easily go down. So it's an idea to use the glass as a structural member, but integrated into the timber instead of just sitting on the top. I just like that idea of playing around with cantilevered bits hanging out, you know, glass sticking out of wood. I think it looks cool.
And it's super modern, as you said in the video. Like, it's a modern look.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been pretty slow at the moment, work-wise, coming in. I'm really trying to kick people up the bum to go and say yes to things, and like I've just been quoting, and just dead quiet. It's just been really weird, and I think I probably said that for the last 2 weeks in a row. But that's just, yeah. I'm not sure if people just don't want. Well, I don't know what it is. So I've been working for quite a while on getting this job to do this big cedar gates for this guy. Now his neighbor also wants exactly the same gates, so they're in cahoots to try and get a cheaper price if I make all 4 gates at once, which actually it will be slightly cheaper for somebody, one of them. I'm not sure who.
But put the wall back on them.
Yeah, so it's a bit tricky to work out who gets the discount. But the problem to get this job, I have to. They want someone to project manage the rest of it, and that means getting the big concrete post dug, poured, and getting somebody to apply the fake stone veneer, getting the gate automation guy sorted out, and kind of coordinating the whole lot, which I can do. I used to essentially do that back in my building days. It's just a heck of a lot of time me sitting, emailing, which I have been doing because I'd like to do the job. And it's just not that fun having to kind of do all this work. I'm going to probably have to spend at least 1 day pouring concrete on this job for these big pillars. I just don't really want to do it, but it's just going to happen. And it's actually better that I do it. And I know everything's plumb. So when I make the gates,
you'll be paid for your time, won't you?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's all. I'm going to price it all out as parts of the job. But it's just, you know, kind of things you have to do to try and get the job you want to do. It's not really a major. It's just a lot of coordinating, which is just can be frustrating when people just don't email you back.
And I'm guessing when you run a wood shop where you do everything, and your assistant there is doing exactly what you tell her, to now be playing coordinator must be pretty rough.
Yeah, it's just annoying. But otherwise, yeah, that's about me. I've got some work on in the shop, but that'll be a video at some point.
Cool. Yeah, me has been really quiet as well. I'm just trying to get people to give me the go ahead or just finalize designs. And I've got one. This is the client which has the table, the stool, and the 2 stools and the bench seat. And they're just, I don't know, they're not difficult at all. They just know what they want. But I kind of quoted this job before we had a design locked in. Like, they had 2 designs for possible tables, and one of them was like kind of like stance, similar, which has a fairly thin top, and the other one was a farmhouse style base. And I didn't really look too closely at the images. I just said, all right, that's going to be 1 less day of work, thinking it would be the same amount of material, but the top on it is 50 mil thick, not 30. And it's
finished.
Yeah, well, anyway.
That's what I've had that problem before, where someone said, "Oh yeah, I want a 50 mil finished," and so you're like, "You mean I've got to buy 60 mil stock somewhere?"
Yeah, and this is what I've kind of explained to them, and they're using the black butt I have on the shelf, and I've given them a huge discount, like massive, because this is when I thought, well, I'm not going to have any work if I don't get this job.
Yeah.
So I sent back the email after I sent through my first sketches and explained that, look, this time, because it was my fault, I'm not going to do anything. Just be aware that if you come back to me in the future wanting furniture, 50 mil thick material is not just a little bit more expensive than 30 mil material. It's almost twice the price. So I'm not going to worry about it this time. Just be aware that if you do come back, just because I don't want it to be that case where they come back expecting me to do something for nothing, which has been a bit of back and forth. But I think we finally have clear idea of what we're going to do. So I've just got to spend some time getting the models updated. I also delivered that giant bookshelf and finally got a video out, which is nice.
Yep.
It was a bit rushed and it was a bit of a shame, but yeah, the product came out really nice. The client loves it. It's already full of books apparently. So yeah, it was interesting getting into position. It had to go down a flight of stairs, which was tight and heavy, but it wasn't a wraparound.
What that base unit weigh?
It was somewhere between oomph and
a big curve. Yeah.
Not quite a pop in the back, but
yeah, not quite didn't quite bust your pooper, but it was close. What else?
So what was the plywood on that?
It was just decorative beadboard look plywood.
Oh, it had like a V grooving.
Yeah, it had like V grooving through it, and it was basically a compromise. It was look, I can do solid, but it's gonna do this, or I can do this. It will look fine. You won't see it behind all the books anyway. And then
really cool.
When I quite liked it.
Yeah.
What was the other side though? Because where you put it, it was just in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
So is it going to stay as a divider?
It stays as a divider, and then on the back side, and this is also a reason for going ply, they're doing a mirror, not a mirror, a photo frame mural.
Okay.
So, like, heaps and heaps of different size frames pegged on the back.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, so like right now it looks a little bit, well, when I delivered it, it looked a little bit, but I'm sure once I've finished covering it up, it will look pretty good.
I liked your idea of arrowing the back edge of the ply. Especially if it's going against a wall. Because that can be, I mean, otherwise you've got to put rebates on your end panels, and then they've got to be slightly bigger than everything else, and it's just a bit annoying.
What did you call it, Joey? What did Jordan do?
Oh, an arrow, or no, what do you call it?
Harris?
Just putting a chamfer on it. That'll do. Yeah.
I've never heard that.
An arrow is usually, in my experience, an arrow technically would be a lot smaller, up to about 3 or 4 mil. I guess just slightly 45, if that makes any sense.
Just knocking off the corner.
Yeah.
I love our technical scientific terms about how heavy it was and our degrees.
Yeah.
Only the best.
The color that it ended up turning out after the oil looked very golden pan. Was it in the
it wasn't blue.
Not in the flash. It was more like pinkish than anything.
Right,
because there's a lot of pink through it.
That was my only concern about it. Was I looked at it and I was like, "Wow, this thing's straight out of the '90s with that color."
No, it doesn't.
I'm sure up close with the grain. Yeah, with the grain and everything, it wouldn't. But
yeah, my camera's doing some weird things with color temperature changes, and I'm trying to correct it in my editing. But then the next clip is perfect.
Right.
So it's not like I can do just a batch apply of filter. It's so I've just left it basically. But it looks really cool.
Yeah. The other thing as well, where the two pieces met, I saw you putting in screws. Were there screws going into the walls of the above piece, or was it just it looked like it was just going into the bottom panel?
Just into the bottom panel. I mean, it's not really doing much other than stopping it from being knocked sideways. If someone really wanted to push that thing over, there's nothing stopping them, but it's I don't think it'll be an issue.
Right.
I mean, I didn't really think about that. But now that you bring it up, I don't think it'll be an issue.
I would have assumed that you would have gone up through the walls of the next piece, so you could get like a nice.
Because the walls go in a straight line, I would have to do it at like a toenail angle.
Oh yes, that's right.
It would be really hard to capture through the base and then get it into the wall, and then not have the screw head sticking out.
How many times have you done that and had the screw come out right on the corner, and you see it from the inside? Like oh my god!
More times than I care to admit.
I hate that.
I don't really learn.
No. That's why whenever possible, I try not to have to stack things in line.
Yeah.
Like the design, I'm like, oh, why don't we make the shelves an uneven spacing just so they look good? But really, I just don't want to have to deal with things being in the same plane.
Alignment's a bitch, let's be honest. But yeah, that was pretty fun. It was a good deal. Took a while.
That was something my my old neighbor in Adelaide, the builder, used to say to me. if you can't be 100% sure that you're going to line something up, make sure that you drastically offset or offset it or drastically change the color, because there's nothing worse than something that's almost there.
Almost
terrible.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
What else, Jordan? Said it.
I also picked up another tool, another freebie. It was
another lathe.
Like no. It was just a old Camelback style drill press.
Oh, what?
You know the Camelback style drill press where it's that cast iron shape and it's got the quill that goes through the pulley and all that. Yes, that's one of them. It was $50, and I thought, you know what, I'll get it.
Just put it on the wall.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sitting in the corner for now. Probably will never get touched, but it was $50. So.
Fine.
Yeah. But no, that's it.
What's going on with the what is it? The blue. I'm just going to call it the blue lathe because I don't know that there's a name that you gave it. What's going on with it? Is it any closer to being operational, or are you still making the parts for it?
It's still operational. I'm kind of hesitant to put too much into it now that I've got a good small, which is still a big lathe, but small in comparison to it. Like, there's no point in me fixing it up. It's just a love project if I do it. And then once it is fixed up, am I ever going to use it? So kind of my thinking right now is if I do hold on to it, it's going to sit there for a few years before I do any work. So I'll put the giant faceplate on it, remove the jaws, and then affix some sandpaper. And then I have a 4.2 disc with very accurate slow feed speeds.
That could be handy for one or two jobs ever.
If I start making chairs, it could be good.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just going to sit there for a while. I might scrap it.
You know what you could do with it, Jordan? You could put it like a router bit in the chuck.
Yeah.
And change the dolly system so you could have a multi-router.
Oh, yeah.
Setup.
I could, actually, it's big enough that I could mount a round spindled router, you know, the ones with the round base, in the chuck. So I don't even need to worry about putting the router bit on. It doesn't even need to turn on then. And then I just have to.
Then you could make up like a plywood base on that dolly system, and you could do some like mortising on it.
Yeah, that could become a little milling machine.
I bet you could do that.
Yeah. That's an idea.
Next week, Jordan loses other finger.
Or the arm.
Yeah, with the size of that thing, yeah.
On that happy note, what about you, Rob?
So I've just been continuing with the bathroom.
Saw the vanity.
Yeah, the vanity's been going, which has been pretty cool. Working on that. It's made of mobile. And I don't know if I've mentioned this to you guys. The window trim that I used in that bathroom is all mobile. And my logic behind it was that's a real solid, pretty water resistant timber because they use it for decking, obviously. And I had a few people say to me, don't just be careful because of the tannins.
Yeah.
You know, mobile can leak quite a bit. You've essentially got this in a wet room. And I thought to myself, you know what? It'll be fine. I'll just prime this to make sure everything's primed, and it'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
All of the frames now, well, no, I'd say all of them. Only two sides of them. You just every now and then you just get this red trickle comes down. I thought I'd sealed them, but obviously I haven't. What a nightmare this is! It's just turned into this, and the problem is there's just white grout everywhere. And it's just soaking up all this.
I might have the answer for you a bit later into the subject.
Right. Okay. What? Just don't use mobile next time.
Well, maybe.
There is a treatment that you can. I don't know what it's called, but there is a treatment for tannin stains where you just like kind of scrub it on and it lifts it. It's not actually a solution to your problem. It's just more money to spend. But
well, what I'm going to do is just slowly try and patch the areas, and then either clean the grout or redo the grout, because I know you get these like colored grout pens that you can use, and that'll be fine. It's just the top layer has just got to be sorted out, and I'll give that a go. But yeah, what I should have done is gone to Bunnings and got that. You get this. I didn't know that they had it here, but you get in the States, you get, is it PVC trim?
Yeah.
Yep.
You can buy that here. I didn't know that you could. I didn't think we had it locally. So that would have just been the best thing, because then it's waterproof and it's not full of tannins. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention that, because to all the people who have said, be careful of the tannins, you were totally right. I was totally wrong. I should not have used that. Total disaster. But anyway, the reason I mentioned that is I've started work on the vanity, and I had it upstairs just before the podcast. Got the jigsaw out, cut out the hole for the sink, and there's just dust anyway. And I went through it and I was like, Jamie, you cannot shower until I've cleaned this bathroom, because one drop and it's just going to be a mess in here. So, so the vanity's going, the vanity's in place. The vanity top is basically done. I started painting the doors today. It's literally painting, and then I'm done. So
Nice.
the end is in sight. I'd like to say a couple of weeks, just because I'm back at work now after paternity leave. So probably a couple of weeks, and then I can finally get on to something else.
Nice.
All right.
That's pretty much me. All right. So what we're going to talk about today. Oh, sorry, Joey, you said you wanted to add something in? Or
No, I will get into it
later. Okay.
Yep.
So what we're going to do today is carry on from last week when we were talking about finishes and finishing in general. We got started last week, and we deep dived, and we only touched the surface. So we're going to continue with it this week. So quick recap. Last week we were talking about what varnish,
mainly what varnish was. Yeah,
varnish is made of, and how the term varnish is potentially a misnomer. There is no such thing. One thing we talked about last week was linseed oil.
Yep.
And I'm holding in my hand a bottle of the raw linseed oil. So this is the
very noisy.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I was going to try and smell that. This is the raw 100% stuff, and it's basically use it outside. It's good for gazebos. I bought this because I thought I'd open it up and try and give it a sniff, because I know we said that it had a really strong odor, but I might need to mute my mic and try this out. So where do we want to start from?
What do you think? Do we want to hit shellac a little bit?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start with the misconception that shellac is made from the husks.
Well, yeah, I was always told, my dad said that shellac was made from the back or the beetle body of the lac beetle, and I think all three of us kind of thought that last week when we had a wee chat about it. I did some research. Turns out that the lac bug, or the female lac bug, secretes a resin on the bark of a particular species of trees, mainly in India and Thailand. And like hundreds of thousands of these bugs will swarm over any given tree and leave behind this secretion as they dig their way through the bark. And so what people do is come and scrape off the bark and the secretion, gather it up into like sock-like rags, then heat that bundle up, and the resin drips out onto a tray. It dries. They break up the resin into little flakes, and that's what we buy as the shellac base. And then that's obviously dissolved. I say obviously, it is then dissolved into like an ethyl alcohol mix of varying recipes of how you go about doing that.
And that secretion is called lac, right? Is that the same or no?
Yeah, well, it's the lac beetle, and so that's
right.
I guess I'm not sure where the shell part comes from, but I'm actually not sure about that. I guess they do call it lac. I don't know.
Okay.
So, yep.
That resin's got I don't have a lot of experience with shellac. I've only ever used it once. I've never actually seen the flakes. That's
like dead skin.
Now that's got a real amber color to it.
There's a bunch of ways they color it. So I was going to read into that, and I thought that's kind of irrelevant. I suppose if you really want to know how the coloring works, you can probably research that. Something I thought that might be relevant is that if you're looking into it, you will probably see that they sell waxed, or there's de-waxed shellac.
Yeah.
Which you're like, why did they put wax in it in the first place? Well, it turns out that the bugs naturally secrete about 4% wax as they're secreting the resin. So if you're going to use the shellac as an undercoat for a particular thing, the top coat may not like the wax amount in that. Might not be able to finish over a waxy surface, in which case you want the de-waxed version for using it as an undercoat or primer.
Yeah, because it's a good binding agent, isn't it? You can actually use it to go between two incompatible finishes.
Apparently,
but you can't use waxed shellac for that. It has to be de-waxed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's very super, what's the word? Versatile. Just a couple of things I didn't actually know that before vinyl was invented, records were made of shellac. Like it was everything seems to have had shellac in it at some point. Which brings us to, I suppose, in the same world as French polishing, which has this mysterious kind of vibe about it, I think. But really, it's just lots of coats of shellac rubbed on in varying specific ways. Again, there's lots of different ways of how it should be done according to ye olde people. But essentially, it's just lots of layers of shellac. The downside is, I mean, it looks awesome. It builds up a lot of depth, and you get a lovely glow from it. But it's very soft compared to anything with the resin and oil mix. But also, water and alcohol will leave stains on.
Yeah.
I have something contradictory to that, and this is what I was taught with when I did my first shellacking. You talked about what you mix it in with, and a lot of people, in the back of their sheds, will grab a tin of metho and put the shellac in there. But the problem with that is that
should be ethanol, not metho.
Right, because metho has a lot of water in it. It's not. What you want to do is you want to get it as close to pure ethanol alcohol as possible. Because if you have water in it, then water can reactivate it, which is where the water stains come from. So the less water you can have in the mix, the less damage water should do to it. But that's why you would never shellac a bar top, because it's a little drop of alcohol and it's just your finished product.
But funnily enough, if people always did dining tables and things, of course, someone's going to have a sherry or something at Christmas time, and then the next day
a little stain,
get a stain. But
so I don't know. I don't have experience with it, but that's what I was told. It would be really interesting to see if a cup with the water, the condensation ring actually does damage it. Or is there a big difference between the types of ethanols?
I've finished a few fruit bowls with shellac before, and I've even noticed that some of the the oils from oranges and all that leave stains in it. It softens it underneath. So
I guess it's could be an acid thing leaching out of it.
Yeah.
Something I thought was interesting I guess it makes sense. Once you've mixed your shellac, it has a shelf life. And it varies as well depending on the mix, as far as I can tell. But if a quick test seems to be that you just put a little drop on a piece of glass, and if it evaporates quickly and dries, that's good. If it stays tacky, it's gone. And so don't go putting it on your piece of furniture, which is probably a good little tip.
You were talking about French polishing and the enigma that it is. I thought French polishing was just shellac and then wax.
There's a certain way that it's applied, though. Like you have to. It's all about really quick flash off with it. So it's a very highly diluted shellac, and it's also generally like a rubbing alcohol, not an ethanol, that they use to dilute it. And then
they also mix pumice into the pad.
Yeah.
The pumice dust mixes with the shellac as you're rubbing it in, and it becomes a grain filler. And because because the pumice is technically a glass and in a dust form, the alcohol it cross bonds with the resin and the shellac, and it melds into one thing and becomes a molecular film, and that creates a really good grain filling, clear, transparent, or takes on the color of the shellac. So that's another part to it as well. You're actually abrasing it as you're buffing it in with the pumice powder. So there's just a lot of small technicals to it if you really want to get into it.
There's an entire trade built on it. So.
What was that, John? What was it?
Oh, I was just saying that there's an entire trade built on it. Like you'll meet a lot of tradies that come up to you and they'll say, "Oh, yeah, I'm a French polisher by trade." I'm like, yeah, really? I cut big bits of wood into little bits of wood. So that's cool.
Can you get quite a high gloss with shellac, French polishing?
Yeah, it's naturally shellac is glossy.
Is it? Okay. Right.
If you want to have it not so glossy, really the only way is to buff it back with a like a refined grit.
Okay. That tea box that I did not too long ago, that was shellac. So it was one coat of shellac and then buffed with, or polished with some paraffin wax.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that was a real satin.
Yeah, because only one coat of shellac, it's really hardly even a sanding sealer, I would have thought, one coat. Because it's 90% thin.
Yeah.
So in the same vein, there's a company called Zinza, who I will talk about a bit more, but Zinza is stocked in Bunnings and most paint places, to be honest. They do shellac in the can, ready to go, in amber and in clear and de-waxed versions by the liter. It has a year shelf life. So usually they will have a date of manufacture on there, so you can get an idea of how much time you've got left with it. And I haven't used it, but I've definitely seen it here on the shelf. So yeah, that is, and I guess I'll get into this now, Robin, with your timber bleaching out tannins. That same company, Zinza, make two different primers, which would really help you out. The one that would probably help most is in their red can. It's called BIN Shellac Primer. It's white, dead white shellac stuff. It dries in 3 seconds. Your paintbrush is dead after you use it. So like it's a one-time use thing.
Your best brush you got.
Yeah. But that stuff will stick to anything. It is literally a silver bullet. If you need paint to stick to tiles or something weird, you want to paint glass. Yeah, if you want to paint glass with it, you put this primer on. Like it will stick to anything. Smelly as all heck, but it does the trick, and it will stop. The good thing with shellac is that it will stop tannins.
Yeah, because having used a water-based, acrylic, I don't think this could be an ongoing problem, because
my suggestion would be to scrape it back a bit and put this stuff on and then recoat it. The other version, they have a blue can called Bullseye Water. It's a water-based primer, and it's not as good, but it's way more user-friendly. But it's still the best water-based primer I've ever used, and that's what I put on all my projects.
So that wouldn't have shellac in it?
No, it's a water-based primer. So I would go for the shellac one in your case, because you've got definite bleeding of the tannins. So that's my go-to for priming for painting as well. Is the Zinza brand, because it's American stuff. You buy it in quarts or some weird stuff, but it's bloody good stuff.
I've never seen that.
So, interesting fact while we're still on the the shellac topic, is that lacquer is also got a fair bit of shellac in it. Well, it's got lac, which is the same active kind of ingredient, but it's it's mixed with nitrocellulose, which is flash paper or flash cotton, the stuff that they use in special effects, which was something cool to me because I've worked a lot with that in the past, and I had no idea that it was the same thing. And certain solvents and plasticizers, like plastic resins and stuff. But that's what gives lacquer such a hard-wearing kind of finish, is that it's got this nitrocellulose, which is high temperature. Its burning thing is 160 degrees Celsius, so hotter than most things you could put on it. And then those plastic resins on top of the natural shellac is basically the same thing. It's just clearer and more refined with chemicals.
Wow.
So that's a fun fact.
So you had some homework, George. Did you happen to do that about if there's a difference between pre-catalyzed and catalyzed lacquers?
Yeah, I did a little bit. There's a lot that goes into it. Like this is a full chemical makeup, and I am not a chemist, so it was mostly over my head. But basically, the differences are with a pre-catalyzed versus post-cat lacquer, as long as it's a nitro lacquer, nitrocellulose, which is 95% of wood lacquers. The main finish difference in it is hardness. So a catalyst is just something to finish off the chemical reaction which is taking place. So generally speaking, a pre-cat, which is pre-mixed and it's straight out of the can, won't harden quite as much as a post-cat lacquer. So often your finishes can't get quite as glossy if you want a higher gloss. Your pot life is generally a little bit longer as well with a pre-cat. So you can actually leave your spray gun set up for upwards of 2 to 3 weeks without having to clean it out. Whereas if you're using...
I thought those things it dried instantly and you had to clean everything off immediately.
Yeah, well, because it's an airtight thing, it's all about the, what's it called, the solvent flashing off, and that's all it is. So as long as it's airtight, so you got a pressure canister, not a gravity feed gun, you can leave it in there for a few weeks.
You're not talking about like the needle and stuff. That's still got to be cleaned.
No, you can leave it.
You just leave the whole lot in there.
Everything.
It's just like being in the can of, the can of lacquer. It might as well just be in the gun.
I only clean my gun, which apparently I'm doing it too irregularly. I do it every fortnight, but because I use post-cat, so I have to put the catalyst in. Your pot life is generally only upwards toward a week.
I imagine if you use a post-cat, it's going to dry faster and give you a faster stacking time of your pieces. Is that right?
Yeah, that's basically the gist of it, and it's also going to dry harder.
Yeah, right.
Because the cat,
it's more user-friendly. So it's more user-friendly for commercial guys who are just pumping out stack loads of shelving or doors or something.
Exactly, but it's also worse because if you breathe it in, which, I mean, anything that you're spraying is bad for your lungs, but if you breathe it in, it will literally harden in your lungs. So once you've breathed it in, it's in there. It's dry. It's not going to go anywhere. And that's why it's got so many regulations around it. And that goes for pre-cat as well. It's just you've got more chance to breathe it out before it sets because it dries slightly slower.
I never thought about that.
I can see this in like the next Saw movie. They make it breathe it in and their lungs just instantly solidify and
expanding foam.
It's nasty stuff, and the more I read about it, the more afraid I got of what it can do. But the only saving grace is that I don't know what NO2CH3 is, so it doesn't scare
me. Last week, something that I looked into last week, I showed you guys my bottle of water-based terps.
Yeah.
Right. And I said how rubbish it was, and I couldn't work out how this worked, how they made this. Turns out that I was completely wrong about it. That's called water-based terps, TURPS.
Yeah.
There is no turpentine in there.
No, that's the petroleum version, is it?
I just assumed that, and this is clever marketing to these people. You've got turpentine, which comes in your orange mineral turpentine from Bunnings. I thought this was the same thing, but water-based.
Okay, no.
But because they've called it terps,
So it's a marketing ploy.
they can be whatever they want in there. There's no turpentine. It's just terps.
Well, that's what everything here in New Zealand is terps. I actually had a look last time I was in the shop, and I couldn't find turpentine. Everything is either terps or even called turpentine, but it's not turpentine. It's the petrol, you know, the oil base.
Oh, well, this is not even that. This is just, it's basically soap, some kind of soap and water. But they've called it terps because it cleans oil-based brushes, or, you know,
does it clean?
So you shouldn't use it for thinning. It's
you
just
can't,
cleaning.
and they say you cannot use it for thinning. And I remember looking at it going, oh, that's interesting. You would think that if it's turpentine, of course you could use it for thinning, but you can't, because all it is some kind of soap to clean oil-based paint off your brush.
That's on the verge of false advertising, surely.
They call it terp, so you just assume that that's it. Yeah.
But I mean, turpentine or spirit of gum as well, is the other name, is the only thing that is turpentine.
Yeah.
Terps isn't actually turpentine.
No, it's
or turpentine.
It's their petrochemical equivalent.
It's what do Americans call it? They call it
mineral thinners or something.
Mineral spirits or something.
Mineral
spirits, yeah. Some of the current names for it are still is ether, which I thought that was more like morphine, but apparently not.
Well, I'll have some, see if it works. I'll let you know. Last time it was pretty enjoyable.
Oh, man.
Okay, so we've only got time for a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay.
One thing that I wanted to touch on, and this was something that I've been doing this, working on this week, so I thought it'd be relevant. And maybe this is a good question as well that you guys can help answer. Between different coats, we sand in between, not necessarily every single coat, but you sand between coats towards the end. Is there should you be doing that by hand, or can you be using an orbital sander, or is that orbital sander way too aggressive? Basically, I'm working on that vanity. I put a few coats of finish on, and now I've got a 600 pad for my orbital sander. Do I use the orbital sander, or do I do it by hand to go with the grain, or is it much of a muchness at this stage?
Orbital.
Well, there's two ways of looking at it, though. Like, look at car shops who respray high $1 million cars. They all use orbital sanders on it, and then like that comes out fine. But they've also got a pigment that fills those scratch marks. I do an orbital, but always on the last coat, I hand sand with the grain, just so if any scratches do come through, you don't see it. But I also use a finish that melts into itself. If you're using a film finish like polyurethane, that won't melt into the previous layer. So if you do get any little swirly marks, like pigtails, which will happen if it gums up, you will see it. So
not from 400 grit or less.
I've had it. I've had it with 600 grit.
You've seen the swirls?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, you have to be looking really close, but it does affect clarity. So
I suppose it could.
I have no issue in saying use the random orbit as long as you like inspect it very closely. I haven't got an issue saying go for it. It's just there is technicality to it where a lot of these traditionalists would say it's blasphemy.
Yeah, I guess thinking about my process, I think what I would usually build up a few layers until I know that I'm going to be sanding the film and not the timber anymore. I would hit it with 400 or 600 of the orbital, so you can see the highs and lows. You know, like ideally you just want to be seeing a flat amount of the film, and then I would build probably another coat or two of finish, and from there it's feeling pretty bloody smooth. And actually, like you said, George, what I think I usually do is just run over very lightly by hand, just knocking off any kind of nubs and dust nubs and stuff that feel rough, because most of it is dead smooth anyway from the orbital sanding. So you're probably right. I think I probably do the final sand by hand, just out of.
And the other thing that I have done when I was using polyurethane is use like is it 4.0, the finest steel?
Okay.
I think it's 4.0. and I'd actually apply it using the steel wool and then rub it off entirely. So
I just have no luck with that.
it was hard to do with big pieces. So if it was like a dining table, it was really hard because it would dry before I had the chance to wipe it off. But if it was something small, like a entry table or something, I got really good results. But then I moved away from polyurethane altogether and decided to just use something else.
All my experience with the steel wool just gave. I mean, it was like I was sanding it with 180 grit, and I was like, "What is going on? This is just scratching this thing up like you wouldn't believe."
I did notice a few times, like the steel wool turned into something really, really rough. So it like was dissolving almost.
Yeah, well, I can.
Yeah,
so
like I did notice that a few times, but generally on the smaller pieces where it was quick, I had really good results.
Huh. Okay.
There's something else to that, but who cares?
All right. I think we've got time for one question. So Rob Pittaway asked this earlier. Do you guys worry that product will be difficult, as in that manufacturing is such a big market? So I think what he's saying is I know I am a fine furniture maker, but we are fine furniture makers. How do we stand out in the world of IKEA?
Yep.
Rob, I'll start by answering that with, I asked the same question to someone in my local area who's a furniture maker, and he is finding at the moment that the demand for his furniture is actually increasing because people are starting to appreciate and I'm not saying they didn't in the past, but he was saying quite recently, it seems like there's a trend that people are now really starting to appreciate the handmade one-off pieces over your mass-produced stuff. And obviously it's going to come, and those trends are going to come and go. But I think there will always be a market for someone who wants something that you cannot reproduce. You know, that's what's going to allow us to stand out.
And I think the other factor with it is people are steadily moving away from the terrible culture that is everywhere, and that's the throwaway culture. Like IKEA is, we're moving into a flat, let's stock up the entire apartment, and then when we move, we'll just throw it out on the curb because it's cheap, it's crap, and it doesn't last very long. And I think people are, especially with like keep cups and all that sort of stuff, taking off now in Australia, especially. Like they're starting to be more mindful of this throwaway culture, and with China not taking all of our waste now, Australia has to be more mindful about what it does with its waste, and hopefully that means heirloom quality furniture will stay a real thing. But
yeah, I think I'm with Rob. I think I'm with Rob there, in that I guess I see it as not so much me having to stand out, but my clients wanting what they want, and then I'm the guy they find who can make it. That's how my business model has always worked. People come to me because they can't find what they want. Saying that, like I said at the start of the show, my workload has just dramatically dropped off this year, and I'm finding it difficult to find enough work to keep me busy. So whether or not that is just a local issue for me and all my clients, all my local people used up their money, I don't know what it is. But, yeah, I
mean, it's a similar problem over here, and it's not just me as well. It's everyone in my surrounding area that I speak to, all these small business owners. They're struggling a little bit with workload. But I do just see Rob commented, maybe not IKEA, but our products, so Joey's chairs and my surfboards, and versing bigger retailers. So I think it is, like, if we're competing with big retailers, it's impossible. But that's why we have to make a product that the big retailers don't have. So, like, my surfboard
can't make.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just not practical.
Like, you're not going to go into a surf shop and find a wooden surfboard kit to build yourself. I mean, they might, but it's unheard of right now. Maybe once I start putting YouTube videos out there, people catch on to the idea and I'll destroy my own market. But right now, it's just not there. So, it's just that thing of adapting and trying to follow the market and giving them quality that can't be bought just yet.
The whole bespoke, quote unquote, movement, to me, can only work when the client seeks out a maker, because people like us don't have TV ads or radio ads almost any of the time, and generally we're just waiting for people to find us, and that seems like a bad marketing move.
Strategy.
Strategy, but you can just sink money into marketing endeavors and just never see a return from it, because that's not where your target audience is.
Yeah.
And good luck actually trying to find where your target audience is. So
yeah, I've thrown away a fair bit of money on no result advertising. Well, not heaps, like maybe $300-400 in the last few months, and it hasn't returned anything. So everything is still word of mouth, or people physically looking for furniture maker, custom furniture, and finding my website.
But I guess that's because, the word of mouth thing is because that's people trust in you. Going back to what you said, Joey, they are finding you, so to speak. It's not in your face marketing. So when someone says, I got something made by so-and-so, that level of trust is there, and that's what gets them over the line, not necessarily the banner ad over the motorway.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Nick, I know you had a question as well. We don't have time for it today, unfortunately, but I'll put it on the list for next week. It's one for you, Joey. All right. Well, what have we been watching, Joey?
Northman is the name of the channel. The video is called Birth of a Weapon. I believe it's an English bow or English longbow.
Longbow, yeah.
I love bows and arrows. Made them since I was a kid. I've had a bunch of them. I haven't actually had one I haven't had a good one for quite a few years, just because I really had nowhere to shoot one. And at the moment, we've got a cool paddock next to us, and eventually I'd like to make one with my boy, and we can shoot bows and arrows in the paddock. This is an awesome video. I mean, I'll never do this because it's way above me, I think, skill level wise. But just this guy's a master, and the video is so nice. I think I just enjoyed the video almost more than what he made. But really, really nicely shot.
Talking about bows and arrows, I watched this random video the other day, just out of the blue, about why archers, as traditionally Olympic archers, once they release the arrow, the bow drops.
Yeah.
And how you're not actually supposed to hold the bow. I'm probably getting all the words wrong, the terminology wrong. You're supposed to just, it rests in your hand.
Right.
Yeah, and once the arrow's gone, there's nothing, so it should fall.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know how I ended up in that corner of YouTube.
Into a deep, dark corner.
Just a whole 15 minutes dedicated to that, which was quite interesting.
Funny.
So, John, do you have anything?
I haven't got anything new. I've just been watching the same 2 channels I suggested the last 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, I was just watching French guy makes some ramen noodles.
Yeah, the ramen addiction is what I was just finishing off when the call came through to do this.
All right. Well, this week I wanted to point out Matt Crimona's outfeed table.
Oh yeah.
He hasn't done a video on it yet. The video that I'm talking about is his vlog series where he talks about it. But I just want to point out, because I just thought it was quite an interesting project for us to have, to see people in the community with shop furniture that looks better than most of our dining room furniture.
Yeah. I see he was off on Instagram. He had it at a photo shoot for the Fine Woodworking magazine or something.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. He was going to be doing that. Yeah. I see. Cuffy saw the archery video that I was talking about too. So, that guy must have put some money into advertising.
Yeah, man.
All right, cool. Okay, well, everyone, thanks very much for tuning in. I think we're going to be doing finishing next week again.
I'm not sure.
It could be.
We could go on to paint, I suppose.
Yeah, we could go paint,
let's
oils, other soft things.
Let's lock it in.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll be talking about that next week. Thanks to everyone in the chat. And thank you to everyone who dropped off questions. Nick, as I say, we'll get to that next week. And that's about it for the show. So we'll see you guys again next Thursday, same time.
Catch ya.